So, mission. What is mission? Of course, mission is what we do. I am a Christian, therefore I do mission. We know the Bible verses that support mission. Go into all the world and be my witnesses, etc. But is there more to it than that? Is mission something which is limited by us, and whether or not we choose to obey the Great Commission or not? Or is there something more? We're good at quoting the New Testament in the context of mission, but surely mission must go back even further than that. Chris Wright, a famous theologian, says, "The Bible gives to us God's story of God's people in their engagement with God's world for the sake of the whole of God's creation." The Bible is an account of how God works through His people to reach out to all of creation. Mission, therefore, is not what we do, it comes from God. Therefore, we should seek to be a part of His great mission. There are loads of prophecies in the Old Testament about a Messiah who would come. This Messiah was going to fulfill everything that God had promised to His people, Israel. In the Old Testament, God made a promise to Abraham that He would bless all of his descendants. This mission of bringing blessing to His people, this is the mission of God. These people, Israel, were to be called a light to the nations, and they were to be an example of that blessing promised by God to all the nations of the world. That's not just in the promised land, when things were going well, but that's in the desert, in the face of persecution, in the struggles, and when it hurt. They had to respond to the constant changing task of showing God's love in a world that was constantly changing. That is mission in action. The fact that we have this physical Bible in our hands is a result of people in the past witnessing about God and spreading His word. The Bible tells us story after story of how God sought to bless His people, and the culmination of this blessing would come in the form of the Messiah. This is the story of the Bible. We start at the beginning with one man, Abraham, who is challenged to trust God, who is challenged to step out and be a part of this mission. At the end, we read of a vision where people from every nation, tribe, and language will find themselves a part of that blessing. So now we know that, the question is, where do we fit? Firstly, we inhabit the earth, which is a good place to start. We are part of God's good creation. More than that, we are made in the image of God. We are unique amongst all creation. We can have relationships with each other and with the living God. But when we look at this world now, we can see mess. Mess that has infected the environment, our lives, and our relationships with each other and with God. What can we do about it? Not a single thing. On our own, we can do nothing to change this, but God has a solution. Through God's choice and through His people, things can change. Blessing will be brought to all nations, and all of creation will be renewed. So where does the Great Commission come into all of this? First, look at the Great Commandment. Love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Jesus takes this further and adds, love your neighbour as yourself. We are commanded firstly to love God and to love our neighbour as ourselves. Out of this should flow our desire to see the Great Commission fulfilled. We cannot make disciples of the nations without love for God and love for the people of the nations. So what is mission? Our mission is to be part of God's mission, to see all peoples blessed. It started with Abraham, carried on through the Old Testament, and then Jesus made this our mission, to be light, to be love, and to bring God's blessing to those around us. This is not a choice.